Hi everyone, Therese here. I've got another pendulum tip for you this week, and my assistant this week is this beautiful amethyst pendulum, which you can customize in my Etsy shop. So you can add your zodiac sign to this pendulum, and I find these are really great for gift giving if you want to give someone a pendulum because you can customize it for your loved one with their zodiac sign. How cool is that? So today I want to talk to you about the topic of who or what part of you is answering back to you when you're using your pendulum. So if you go back to the first pendulum tips video I did, and that was about 2 weeks ago, and you can find it in my IGTV. It's under a category all about pendulums. And I talked to you about the fact that it's not something outside of you that's answering you through your pendulum. So I know when I was younger, I was like, ooh, what spirit is moving the pendulum, right? It turns out it's your own electromagnetic field. But what is really interesting about our field is that our field is layered. And we know this, but it's easy to sort of homogenize our field and think that, our field is simply answering us back, that it's one cohesive unit that could be answering. And the truth is actually there's layers. And if we're not conscientious of what part of ourself we want to talk to, we really don't know what part of us is answering through the pendulum, and that can affect the results of the answers we get from our pendulum. So I want to talk to you about some of the different layers that could be responding to you through your pendulum, and also when to use those layers, because I think that, first of all, I think it's brilliant that our energetic field can be accessed at different levels. And I think that we can get really good answers and do some deep work with ourselves if we know what part of our field we're accessing. So let's go over the different layers of ourself that could answer us when we're using our pendulum. The first layer that we could be accessing is our own ego. And our ego is subject to motive, right? It has an agenda. All of our egos have an agenda, and the agenda is to stay alive and be in control of this vessel while we're here, right? So it's survival mode. A lot of our shadow parts live inside our ego, and our ego is highly emotional, so it's going to respond emotionally to things. So obviously, if we're trying to get the highest truth about something, we might consider, not using our ego, because our ego has its own motivation for answering. So if it wants something from us, it's going to answer from that place and not necessarily the highest truth. But when I find talking to the ego is helpful is when you're actually trying to address certain issues that may live in the ego. This is when it's excellent to be able to tap in and access that layer. Also, when you're doing shadow work, it's a great layer to be able to tap into. If you want to know what's operating at the ego level right now, you can use your pendulum to identify that by simply making a conscious choice that I'm going to ask from the level of my ego, what is, is this the issue I'm working through, yes or no? Is this issue in my way, yes or no? Right? You can also create a pendulum board and write down different topics that you'd like to talk to your ego about, and you can do that with any layer that you're accessing. So the next layer up from the ego is our will, which can be slightly different, because our will is something that we can actually, I would say, have more conscious access to, and would be created to a desire. Now, this desire could be created by the ego, or it could be created by a higher part of our mind. And will is subject to desire. So let's say the will wanted to be in a certain relationship with someone, and you don't realize that the will is answering. If you're trying to find out if that relationship is healthy for you or not, and the will desires it, then it's going to falsely answer, yes, this is a healthy relationship, because that's the desire of the will. We can know that the will is active because, just like ego, the will is also subject to emotion. So it's very emotional in its response. So when is it good to check in with the will? I think when we're measuring our own willpower, that's a great time to access the level of our will and see if we actually have the energy and stamina that our willpower needs to complete our desire. And then we can also use our pendulum to dig in and find out what could be depleting our will, or our energy stores for our will, if it was low in that case. So that's another level. And then the next level up is the conscious mind. And I do a lot of work talking about subconscious mind and the conscious mind over on my Karma Cards videos on YouTube. So if you want to hear more about that, go check out my YouTube channel, Blythe Starlight, over there. But the conscious mind is subject to logic. So here's a good level to access when you want to get down to your beliefs, because your belief system will be held in your own conscious mind. So, this is where it's interesting, because as we grow, as we develop and expand ourselves as human beings, we have high intentions for ourselves, especially when we're trying to make changes in ourselves. Like, we want to be a more open or transparent person, let's say. So we can have that desire and that want, but if we don't have a belief about it in our conscious mind, we have a hard time bringing that to pass, right? We might be more withdrawn because we might have a belief in our own consciousness about an inability to do this, or a fear around it. So this is where using your pendulum to find out what true beliefs you're holding, because I don't think we're always conscious of all the beliefs we have, right? Some beliefs are programmed in, some beliefs are chosen, some beliefs come from, a lot of them come from experience. And so if we experience like a negative outcome around a certain situation over and over again, that becomes our belief, which also means it helps it manifest again and again. But we might not know we're holding that, like a belief in I'm not enough, right? Or I don't deserve good things. These beliefs can be held and we won't even know it. So we're actively trying to call things in, but we have a real belief that's locked in our conscious mind that blocks us from receiving. That's when using a pendulum can be really helpful, is to establish what are those beliefs so that you can then see them and make new choices about it. So after we go through the conscious mind, this is where we go to the subconscious mind. And this is the big data storage area for us. It has a lot of juicy intel for us. A lot of times we can access in many different ways, but it's holding all the data of our experience, and yet it is also subject to the collective mind. So the beliefs held in the collective mind and the understanding held in the collective mind can be tapped into through the subconscious mind. So again, not necessarily the highest form of truth. It's still subject to a collectively held belief. It's a great layer to access when you want to find out what are the collectively held beliefs of humanity, because it's all right there in our subconscious mind, and we can consciously choose, I'm going to access my subconscious mind to find out what's happening on the collective level. That's a great time to access that, and using a pendulum and asking the right questions from that level will give you really good intel. The level after the subconscious mind, this is when we get into the supraconscious mind, or I like to call it the higher self. And this is the highest version of you and your highest energetic signature vibration, the top of the top for you. So this is a great layer to access when it comes to personal knowledge, when you're trying to access your soul blueprint. What are my soul contracts? What did I agree to when I came here? What are the lessons or the experiences that I'm trying to receive? Finding out the coding of your own destiny that you wrote for yourself. Talking to your higher self through the pendulum is going to give you absolutely fantastic information at that level. And yet it's still subject to a type of perspective. So even though our higher self has a higher perspective and sees much, much, much more than we do at this level and at the subconscious mind level even, it still has a, I'm trying to think of the word, I use it all the time in the Law of One, and it won't come to my mind right now. But it sort of breaks away from ultimate truth because it's slanted slightly by a perspective. It is still your energetic signature, which isn't pure source. It is an aspect of source energy. And so therefore, it's not the ultimate truth. It is the truth as it is known through your own energetic signature. Still can give you really good information and can definitely get you closer to ultimate truth. But it will be skewed through that beautiful lens of your soul signature's perspective. Now, if you want to reach ultimate truth, like universal truth, the layer you go through is, of course, source, which is the origin point of everything, including us. Each one of us is source. And it's the purest form of information. It contains everything and nothing. It is the all thing and the no thing. And if you want to know the core truth of any answer, you go right to source energy. That's the level to ask from. If you're looking for the highest truth, start by intending to ask through your pendulum, ask source. And you can, I hope that as I've talked through this with you, you can see the value in each layer. So it's not about trying to bypass any layer of yourself. It's more about correctly identifying what your question is trying, what it matches, right? Identify what your question wants to be answered by, and then tap into that level before you start asking questions. So the more specific you are in your intention and thought with your pendulum, the stronger and more accurate your answers will be. So I hope you enjoy this live. I hope you're staying cool. It's a hot one today in Washington. That's why I'm like in a corner. I'm in a corner in the dark trying to just stay cool over here. So I hope you're staying cool, and I hope you enjoyed this pendulum tip of the week. And if you like this beautiful amethyst pendulum, they are available in my Blythe Starlight Etsy shop, and you can find the link to that in my bio. Until next week, stay magical.